Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 26 series, Rescue the Rockies. The free agency period for the 2032 to 2033 offseason is underway. Unfortunately, I think it's unlikely that we are going to be big players in free agency this year. Signed Noah Schultz to a big contract last offseason and also brought Colt Keith on board. And as we continue moving through this offseason, we've tentatively boosted our scouting and player development budgets a bit. And what that means is we really have very little money available to use in free agency. Now, that's fine. We were a 116 win team in the regular season a year ago, even though we were unceremoniously dumped in the playoffs by our division rival Dodgers, losing 3 out of 4 games to them in the divisional series, despite being 26 games ahead of them in the standings this past season. But we're largely going to be bringing this team back, so the fact that we're not going to be able to make any real significant additions in free agency is probably not the end of the world. We have made one offer to the international free agent Jorge Robles. This is a guy we highlighted at the end of last episode. Avery Sham thinks he's probably a good one to go after, and we're going to try to bring him on board. Really love the movement on his pitches and his above-average control. That said, his stuff is not particularly impressive. He's looking for $1.7 million, a minor league contract with a major league option. We offered him $1.4 million. We'll find out whether or not he accepts that, but that at least gives us the optionality to bring him onto our squad and then have at least 30 days from the start of the season to decide whether we'd want him in the majors or not. And clearly there's an opportunity that he may not leave us for another opportunity, even if we get past that 30-day deadline. But certainly need to get him signed first before anything like that becomes a concern for us. Right now, I have been exploring some options to trade for some relievers, some of whom we saw a couple of episodes ago when we were shopping some of our excess outfielders. Others are people I've come across through doing player searches and trying to find some talent to bring on board. There's deals out there, but I'm inclined to wait right now till the winter meetings, about 2.5 weeks from now. Think that that's when we can tend to get the best deals possible. There's enough relievers out there that I'm interested in that even if there happens to be a flurry of reliever trades over the next few weeks, I think there will still be some guys available that are attainable for us and can make the team better. And since we also turned over our scout this past start of the offseason, literally just weeks ago, gives us an opportunity to continue scouting up some of those relievers with our new scout a little better than they happen to be. So we'll hopefully have a more fulsome view of what exactly we might be bringing on board when the winter meetings get underway in a few weeks. So to turn the long story that I just talked through short, probably not going to be too much action from us over the next 2.5 weeks or so. And as expected, no real action over the last 2.5 weeks. We've simmed ahead to the start of winter meetings. I did finally get some feedback from Mr. Robles today, and he said, "Man, no way am I signing a minor league deal with Colorado. I'm ready for the show now, and you ain't showing me no respect. By that I mean money, man. I'm going to be a star reliever in this league someday, and you're going to regret not giving me what I deserve." So Mr. Robles has upped his demands a bit and says he now wants a 3-year major league contract at $1.73 million a year. I also don't really particularly like his attitude. I don't think we're offering this guy a 3-year guaranteed major league contract. His stuff is awful. Now, granted, with the great movement and above average control, he can probably overcome that. But we are at the point where it's time for us to finally put up or shut up when it comes to some of these relievers that we have been circling for the last month and a half or so since the offseason got underway. So with the winter meetings now underway, I think we're going to look to bolster the bullpen if possible in the trade market. And we have gotten a trade for a reliever done. It's a guy who we have had our eye on for the last month and a half or so. Not someone who, when we shopped the likes of Christian Arguelles and Trent Clausen at the start of the offseason, that showed up on the list as being available for them. He was a bit more expensive, but we did end up shipping the outfielder Christian Arguelles, who had a really nice first year with us back in 2031. 27 doubles, 11 home runs, and 383 at-bats, put up a 112 WRC plus as our starting everyday left fielder against right-handed pitching. Last year found himself caught up in a numbers game, played very well in AAA, hitting .310 there, but only a .176 average and 102 at-bats at the major league level. And given the depth of our outfielders and the fact that it's Arguelles' last option year, felt like he was a guy who we were perhaps ready to move on from, or at least be willing to include in a trade. We also had to include minor league second baseman Gabe Parsons. Not a horrible prospect. Looks like he could definitely be a useful major league bat and a glove that could play a lot of positions in the infield. But although he's got really good infield range, the rest of his ratings are pretty mediocre and average-ish in the infield. Pretty mediocre to average-ish when it comes to his speed and his base running instincts, and just don't see him being a big-time infielder for us in the future, more of a utility infielder guy down the line, so we were willing to include him. And then we also included the minor league catcher Glenn Nyhart. Looks like he could have an interesting bat for a catcher, and he actually hit .335 last year as our everyday catcher in A-ball. But ultimately, defensively, he is nothing special at catcher. If you've followed us over the years, know we like to have pretty good defensive catchers, and didn't feel that his bat was special enough that he was ever going to be someone we were really focused on developing. So we were willing to include Parsons and Nyhart along with Arguelles to bring in a pretty interesting relief prospect, 24-year-old Rich Hannon. Given that he is heading towards his mid-20s, I think a lot of this untapped potential is probably going to remain untapped. He made his major league debut last year for the Padres and put up a rather sickly 5.68 ERA with 2 home runs and 10 walks allowed in just 12 2/3 innings. But he can throw in triple digits. He's got a excellent curveball and a pretty good cutter that we think could get much better. Really good stamina for a reliever. Don't know at his age that it's realistic to have him develop another pitch, especially because we wouldn't even be working on it until next offseason when he'll be closing in on 26 years old. But think that is a arm that we believe could be somewhat above major league average when all is said and done. Think he's an interesting guy for us to bring on board. So Stricken Hannon, the 24-year-old right-hander, is going to hopefully provide a little more depth in our bullpen this year than we had towards the end of last season. And another day in the books, another trade with the Padres, who don't seem to love their young relievers. They are a team that's in rebuilding mode, so we brought a lefty on board who we think could be pretty useful as we really try to bolster our bullpen with some youth to match the really strong rotation that we think we have now, and used up another surplus outfielder to make it happen. Brendan Tunick, who's been with us for several years now. We picked him up as a Rule 5 player 3 years ago. Didn't actually play in the majors at all last year, but had a respectable season in AAA, hitting .277 with 20 homers and 36 steals. Really good speed, a very good defensive player. The bat has been marginal at the major league level. Tunick still does have an option year left, but given the depth we have in the outfield, felt like it was pretty likely that he was going to be just organizational depth and a 4A guy for us this upcoming year. We also had to include minor league infielder Chris Weinbaum. Another guy, broadly similar to Gabe Parsons, who we included in that other trade. Not as good defensively, does have some positive personality traits. For an infielder, the bat looks like it could be borderline usable at the major league level. He hit .330 in A-ball this past year, 38 doubles, 4 triples, 13 home runs. So he had a really nice season, but ultimately don't see him being a difference maker. So when Weinbaum and Tunick were able to get this deal done, we decided to bring on the 23-year-old left-handed reliever Adonis Anthony Villar. A guy with limited stamina but good at holding on runners, throws in the high 90s, an outstanding cutter with an acceptable circle change. Somewhat similar profile to Hannon. We think his stuff and his movement is in the average-ish to slightly above average range. Think those could both get better. The control, a potential issue. Did walk 25 batters in 46 2/3 innings for the Padres last year, but still was an above replacement level pitcher. The left-hander making the major league minimum this upcoming year. Still has 2 option seasons left. The Padres kept a very small amount of his contract, but we'll take every penny that we can save. The fans excited to have Villar come on board and actually did bump up fan interest 1 point, so that was positive as well. So with the additions of the lefty Villar and the righty Hannon, think that we have definitely finally strengthened our bullpen in the relatively early stages of this offseason. And the focus now is going to be getting ready for the Rule 5 draft, which happens on Christmas Day 2032 in a scheduling quirk. And then ultimately in this episode, plan on moving forward to mid-January when the IAFA signing period begins, and we will take a look at who's available and perhaps turn things over to the Worldwide Scouting Department for some advice. And we've made it to the Rule 5 draft. We're going to take a flyer on another pitcher, reliever Jose Serrano, 22-year-old lefty out of the Minnesota Twins organization. Is a guy who potentially has a 5-pitch arsenal, enough stamina to start, ground ball tendencies. Don't think he ultimately makes our team. He's only made it as high as A-ball or high A-ball last year. Now he was 8-4 with 158 strikeouts and 135 1/3 innings at that level. So he was pretty good there, putting up a 4 WAR. But obviously the jump from high A-ball to the majors is pretty significant. But we'll take a flyer on Mr. Serrano here with our pick in the first round of the Rule 5 draft. Tend to think he's probably going to be the only guy we pick. Mario Garza, an international free agent signing from 2028, who we've been following over the years, is on the market. He is fragile physically. His control is disastrous. Just don't see any possible way he could make our team. So that, in part, is the reason why we went for Serrano over Garza. And even if Garza is available in the second round, kind of feeling with the additions that we've recently made with the trades of Hannon and Villar, as well as the trade of Peavy for Peavy earlier in this offseason, we've definitely made some pretty significant strides improving the back end of our bullpen. And after those acquisitions that we were just talking about to improve our pitching staff, an expected departure finally happened. Don't know what type of corruption there's been in the OOTP email writing database, but we actually did not trade away Braden Nett. He was a free agent, and he left us as a free agent, signed with the Philadelphia Phillies for almost $20 million for the next 3 years. The 30-year-old Nett led the National League in wins just 2 years ago for us, going 18-5. Really struggled in 2031 as a starter for us, 6-9 with an ERA of over 5. And then last year he only started 5 games for us, working primarily out of the bullpen. Low work ethic in his 30s now, and the lack of control has always been a concern of ours, even though he has been an effective pitcher for us at times. So Nett, who was a Gold Glove winner for us in 2030 when he was also an All-Star and was part of our championship team a season ago, is now a member of the rival Philadelphia Phillies. Fortunately, although the fans were upset by his departure, did not actually have a visible impact in terms of our fan interest. And we've simmed ahead a bit more, heading towards the end of December. Got the mid-cycle reviews of how our work in the development lab is going. Unfortunately, not a lot of success or potential success so far. Leo Martinez frustrated with his control program. Kevin Roberts Jr. frustrated with plate discipline. Noah Schultz frustrated with strength and conditioning. Derby Mahez frustrated with bat speed. Brian Stoops frustrated with his movement program. Mike Girard, the young catcher, is actually struggling with his bat speed program. Only 2 slightly positive pieces of news. Justin Gibson is on track with his control program, and Bernie Barrera excelling in his pitch movement program. But ultimately, things are not looking particularly great in the development lab. Girard just a little bit below the frustrated level, so I don't think we're going to stop the program for him. We're going to still hope for better. I guess positively when we look at it, Derby Mahez is very close to being on track in terms of his bat speed program, so maybe with a little luck there, we could get 3 successful programs when all is said and done. Honestly, Leo Martinez is not too far away either, so we'll continue rolling the dice and hoping that the last 8 to 9 weeks of these programs goes even better than the first couple months have. And we've simmed ahead a bit more to the start of the International Amateur Free Agent Signing Period, which is where we will conclude this episode after we share some of the prospects that we have been most focused on for the worldwide scouting department to hopefully share their insights and strategies around. We once again have $5.23 million to spend, so not as many as the top 10 or so teams in the league, but more than many teams. So we should be pretty competitive if we want to bring a single player on board, but there's certainly an argument to be made to save some money and spread that money around, although typically we end up trying to play, at least initially, with 1 or 2 higher-end pieces. 3 pitchers that we're most focused on. One is the starting pitcher, Michael Ruiz, looking for $2.6 million. Like the personality with the high loyalty, adaptability, and work ethic. The 16-year-old out of the Dominican, solid stamina, good at holding on runners, potential 4-pitch arsenal, although we don't think the cut fastball will ever be all that exciting. But think his stuff, his movement and control could all be major league average to slightly better if he reaches his full potential. Another starting pitching prospect, Juan Huerta, looking for $950,000, so he may be someone who we could bundle with another player, outstanding potential stamina, although he's not particularly good at holding on runners. Another guy with a potential 4-pitch arsenal. I think his stuff could be a bit above average. Movement and control in the average-ish range. Fastball only expected to reach the low to mid 90s. Highest end pitching prospect that we've been focused on, and also the most expensive one we've been focused on, looking for $2.8 million. Takao Mori out of Japan. Like the high adaptability, don't love the low leadership and low baseball IQ, solid stamina, although he's not particularly good at holding runners on. Think that he can ultimately top off at around 100 miles an hour on the radar gun. Potential 4-pitch arsenal with potentially outstanding fastball and slider. Think his stuff could be really good, and his movement in control above average as well. So between Mori, Huerta, and Ruiz, 3 interesting 16-year-old starting pitching prospects for us to consider. And moving on to the position players, there's 7 position players we've been investigating more closely. The most lightly regarded prospect, at least by our scout, is the right fielder Bob Morales, looking for $2.2 million. Don't love the low adaptability and work ethic. Don't love that he's not a particularly interesting defensive player, but he's got solid speed. He's durable in terms of his injury proneness, and his contact and his gap power could both be well above average. To go with average-ish power and eye, does have extreme development risk. Probably ultimately not a direction that we're going to end up going, but you never know. A more recent guy that we've been looking at is the shortstop Leo Landa. Looks respectable-ish defensively, pretty average in terms of his speed, but a middle infield prospect, although, again, he's not going to be dynamic defensively there, who could have well above average home run power with a little bit of gap power as well. Landa looking for only $260,000. That's the main reason that he's someone we've been looking at. Seems like a player with a reasonably high ceiling who could potentially be had for a pretty bargain basement price if that's a direction that we ultimately decide to pursue. The other 5 prospects that we've been looking at more closely among the position players are all higher-end, more expensive prospects. Center fielder Mel Ronquillo looking for $3.8 million, which is as much as anybody in the pool this year. Competent defensive outfielder with a nice arm, like the high adaptability and baseball IQ, like the durability. I think the contact and home run power and eye can all be a bit above average, to be combined with potentially outstanding gap power. Another center fielder looking for a pretty big check, $3 million request from Eduardo Barral, also known as Frosty Bill. Looks more like a corner outfielder than a center fielder. A guy whose contact, gap power, and power all look like they could be above average. And then the 3 highest end prospects that we have been investigating very closely are players who our scout sees as having 80 potential. $2.4 million request from the third baseman Antonio Sanchez, also known as Monk. Not a particularly good defensive player, but at 6'4", he could definitely be a representative first baseman. With Monk Sanchez, it's really all about his bat. I think he's got potentially world-class home run power and a very good eye, to go with good contact and slightly above average gap power. So Sanchez is a pure bat. The last 2 guys we'll talk about are both listed as center fielders. $2.2 million request from Ruben Narvaez, one of the more well-balanced prospects out there, like the personality with high loyalty and work ethic, low financial ambition, pretty good outfield range and above average error rating and arm. Does have extreme development risk, but probably the most interesting overall bat we've seen. The 16-year-old switch hitter should, if he reaches his full potential, have above average contact, and well above average gap power, home run power, and eye for Rowdy Narvaez. And last but not least, a $3 million initial demand from center fielder Alfonso Grizz Baltazar, another guy with pretty good outfield range, not quite as good as an arm. He is durable. I think that his gap power and his home run power could both be borderline exceptional. The contact in the eye more in the average-ish range. So a number of interesting players out there. We'll look at a couple of the other really highly regarded prospects that I'm less interested in. When you see some of these batting profiles, you'll understand why I didn't investigate them as closely if you followed me over the years, but I know that some of these profiles will be interesting to some members of the worldwide scouting department. The catcher Franklin, the igniter Rivera, switch-hitting catcher, looks competent-ish defensively, do like the high adaptability and baseball IQ, potentially incredible home run power and eye, but the contact and the number of strikeouts are going to be potential issues, given that he's nothing special defensively as a catcher, and there's really no other position other than perhaps first base where he could conceivably play. The lack of contact and the wacky number of strikeouts combined with his $3 million demand just made him someone I wasn't going to spend a lot of time looking at. Ricardo R.R. Cool J Giannis, another switch hitter and another guy with a very similar profile. The power and the eye, both potentially off the charts, but looks like he's going to potentially strike out an absolutely insane amount of times, although the contact and the gap power are both borderline decent. He could certainly be a first baseman with his 6'4" height. Also listed as a second baseman / third baseman, but really third and first, those corner infield positions are probably the only spots that I could see RR Cool J ending up. Center fielder Ruben Rodriguez, competent defensively, don't love the low baseball IQ, although he does have high leadership and work ethic. I think the contact could be a bit above average, the gap power, the power, and the eye all above average as well. He was honestly a player, Frog Rodriguez, that I was a little more intrigued by than some of these guys with the $1.9 million demand. Giannis, since I didn't mention it, looking for $3.2 million. And then another catcher, Victor Velasco, also looking for $3.2 million. Pretty mad defensively. Does have some home run pop in the bat, but at that price tag was not interesting enough for me to spend a lot of time thinking about him. Also, we'll look at the one highly regarded pitcher that I didn't talk about, Jesus Partida. The low leadership, loyalty, work ethic, and baseball IQ is what really turned me off on him. The stamina and holding on runners are both potentially outstanding, but although we think his movement and his control could both be exceptional, just not an incredibly talented player in terms of his velocity and his stuff. And when you combine that with a very prickly personality, Partida was just someone that we were not all that interested in exploring. So that is a high-level view of the class. If you have any thoughts on which direction you might go, would love to hear about them in the comments. And next time around, we'll be making some decisions with this IAFA pool. Until then, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.